Welcome to Wherezilla's Retrospective. I'm your host, Wherezilla. So where were we?
I have a unique relationship with the Transformers films. I had watched Robots in Disguise when it aired and even owned an RID Optimus Prime toy. However, scattershot airings of Beast Wars, Beast Machines, and the Unicron trilogy made it hard for me to follow any specific series, and as a result, I can't say Transformers was all that important to me. It was when I saw the 2007 movie that I really started to become invested in the franchise. It motivated me to watch Transformers Animated, as well as look up the original series for myself, and this predates the Shout Factory re-release of the series. This probably won't surprise anyone, but I ended up enjoying both shows far more than the movie. What I'm trying to say is the first Bayformers movie was like a gateway drug for Transformers. You can decide for yourself if that's a good thing or not.
Now, I've long since grown out of the target demographic for not just Transformers in general, but the Michael Bay film series, which is probably why I was so distracted by how horny this movie is. But before we address any of that, we need to talk about the transforming elephant in the room.
From November 2007 to February 2008, the Hollywood Writers Guild went on strike, including the writers of the Transformers sequel, meaning by the time Revenge of the Fallen was going into production, only a first draft had been completed, with a lot of the movie needing to be made up as the production crew went along. As if it wasn't enough, the first movie made me cringe at times. Now the sequel has to worry about troubled production. And every time there's a troubled production on Transformers, the end result is usually a huge mess. Remember, the rushed development of the Unicron trilogy led to sloppy animation and bad voice acting in Armada, while Energon was barely watchable.
This is probably the most controversial of all of the Transformers movies for reasons that are all well deserved. Since you're here, you're probably wondering what I think on the subject. So without further ado, let us begin.
Part 2. Bayformers, Revenge of the Writers' Strike.
Gotta wonder. God made us in his image. Who made him?
Given the film series won't be very consistent on the answer to that question, I'm going to have to settle for Hasbro. Well, technically Takara, but that's another story. Anyway, with the Autobots allying with the US military in the last movie, they have spent the last 2 years working together to hunt down Decepticons across the world, the opening scene being one such op in Shanghai. I feel like it would make more sense for the Autobots to cooperate with the Chinese military in this circumstance, but remember who made this movie. Showing the US military in action is something Michael Bay does by reflex. I'm not even kidding. If you thought the last movie had a lot of long, lingering shots showing off the military in action, this one feels like army ads are regularly interrupting the plot. A plot involving someone else calling the shots for the Decepticons.
The fallen shall rise again!
That doesn't sound good.
Not today.
Sweet Vector Sigma! Not taking prisoners today, Prime? I guess because this guy isn't cute like Kremzeek, you have no hesitation this time. Back in 2009, it was shocking seeing Optimus Prime characterized this way, especially since it's not challenged or even commented on by any of the other characters. They just react to him doing this as if it's completely normal for a benevolent figure like Optimus to be doing this. At least it's some characterization. A handful of new Autobots are introduced in this scene, Sideswipe and RC, who have nothing going for them, with few lines and little screen time. RC is especially confusing because she appears to be 3 different robots with a single consciousness, but how exactly that works isn't elaborated on in the film. Once again, it's up to the tie-in material to really delve into who these characters are. The Decepticons even more so. There's hordes of them that appear, but they are primarily enemies to fight, and not really characters. They have names, toys, and appearances in comics, but none of that matters in the movie. Some are reused models of previous characters, the most noticeable being Grindor, who is basically just Blackout from the last movie. Reusing character models and recoloring them to make new characters is just a thing Hasbro does, so perhaps I should expect something like this. I bet it's still an odd thing for most viewers to see, though. Megatron is brought back and spends most of his time beating up Starscream, because some things never change. Soundwave is also introduced in this movie, attaching himself to a satellite and sending Ravaged out to find a fragment of the Allspark. Again, like in the old days. He even has Frank Welker providing his voice.
Soundwave acknowledges.
Without the modulation that gives Soundwave his distinct voice. Meaning here in this film, he sounds more like Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. Something that occasionally happened by accident in the original series.
Excellent ravage.
It's a fitting role for Soundwave, though it's a shame his scenes are limited only to him listening in at exactly the right moment when exposition is being stated. I can only guess this is the result of not having a completed script, leading to easy plot points like this.
I know that look. You don't want to hear me talk about Soundwave. You want to hear me discuss two other characters introduced in this movie. The failed comic relief duo.
What are we gonna do with this shrimp taco?
I'm just bumper capping his ass, throw him in the truck, and then nobody gonna know nothing, not me.
Ugh. This is Skids and Mudflap, Autobot twins who tag along with Bumblebee and the human characters for the second half of the movie. They are played by Reno Wilson and Tom Kenny. Chances are you've grown up watching or playing something the latter has voice acted in. I remember him for being Spyro the Dragon, SpongeBob SquarePants, and animated Starscream. All of which are preferable roles to being one of the twins. They detract from the scenes they are in more than anything, chiming in and saying some kind of smack talk. That is when they aren't fighting with each other over something petty. The scriptwriters deny having any involvement in making them. Supposedly they were Michael Bay's idea, while their personalities were decided upon by their voice actors, saying that their performance was aiming for wannabe gangsters. Instead, however, they come across as racist stereotypes of African Americans. They are dumb, they can't read, are quick to pick fights, and are a huge burden to the other characters. It doesn't help that they have one of the worst designs of the movie characters, with buck teeth along with oversized eyes, ears, and lips that are reminiscent of racist cartoons you'd see in the early 30s. Now, some characters in Transformers are coded to certain human races thanks to their voice actors. Jazz is probably the first one that comes to mind thanks to memorably being voiced by Scatman Crothers in the original series. But ideally, coded characters should have more going for them than just being an insulting caricature. The twins have nothing but the caricature, which might be giving some of you a sense of deja vu because we've had this problem once before. In Beast Wars 2nd with the Jointrons, who were Mexican stereotypes. I implied in my review of that series they were more annoying than Skids and Mudflap, although now I'm not so sure. Technically, the Jointrons have more screen time, meaning I have to put up with them longer, but at least they weren't designed to look like this.
But then again, Skids and Mudflap are symptomatic of a much greater problem with this movie. Too many poorly timed jokes that disrupt the pacing.
Sometimes the movie tries to be serious, mostly in regards to Optimus Prime. The movie wants him to look like a badass, like the forest battle where he fights Megatron, Starscream, and Grindor, who gets his face ripped in half. And then Optimus is stabbed and blasted in the back by Megatron. I've said it before and I'll say it again, dying and coming back to life is practically a character trait for Prime. In theory, this makes the situation dire because the real villain of the movie, the Fallen, claims that only a Prime can defeat him. His goal is to activate a sun harvester that will destroy Earth's sun, meaning the main human characters from the last movie, Sam and Michaela, must find the activation device for the harvester before the Fallen can. That device is a familiar one, the Matrix of Leadership, which can also bring Optimus back to life. Their first clue being knowledge transplanted from one of the Allspark fragments into Sam's head. Reminds me of a similar story that introduced the Matrix into the Marvel Comics. So naturally, much of the movie gets interrupted by comic moments involving not only Skids and Mudflap, but Sam, his parents, his college roommate who gets dragged along for the ride, the tiny Decepticon wheelie. Yeah, this movie has its own wheelie. And of course, the movie's bit parts also get involved in the poorly timed comedy too. It wouldn't be so obnoxious if so much of it wasn't sexual humor. I've lost count of how much of it the movie throws at you. The Witwicky dogs are seen humping twice in under 5 minutes. One of the little robots created by an Allspark fragment has a cock gun. Sandwiched between the hysterics of Sam's mother crying over him going to college is a bit where his parents have an awkward moment where they flirt. His professor makes me worry about how many of his students he's been sleeping with, given every word that comes out of his mouth is basically innuendos about having a big dick. Wheelie humps Michaela's leg, and on and on and on. The horniness of the movie is even a plot point, as one of the Decepticons is a pretender called Alice, who not so subtly tries to seduce Sam.
How about tonight you pretend I'm your girlfriend, and I pretend that you're my boyfriend?
You get it? It's funny, because she's a pretender. Who chases our leads around Sam's college. I told you a long time ago that Shia LaBeouf would end up repeating the university chase scene from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in a much worse movie, and I was right. Are there any characters or parts of the movie that are good? Yes, actually, I still ended up liking Michaela at the end of the day. Now, I might be reading too much into this given Megan Fox had a difficult time working with Michael Bay, but she's still a strong character. She catches Wheelie in the act of trying to steal one of the Allspark fragments, saves Sam from Alice, and is able to hold her cool for most of the movie. She freaks out a hell of a lot less than Sam. We are teased at the beginning of the movie as we learn she's helping her father adjust to life out of prison. And if I'm being honest, that could have led to more interesting human drama if, again, Michaela was the main character and this had greater focus, while Sam going to college feels more like the setup to a generic sex comedy. One that isn't funny.
No, there's a friend of mine, he just went to get you a tighter shirt.
There isn't a tighter shirt. We checked.
Adding to all of this is the back and forth way Sam and Michaela's relationship is portrayed, some of which I blame on working with a pieced-together script instead of a final draft. Michaela wants to be serious, making a comment late in the movie about how she's only had shallow relationships before. Sam wants to continue a long-distance relationship with her when he goes to college, seemingly still dedicated to her, but hesitates to say, "I love you." Yeah. This relationship feels about as circular as some of the cinematography. I feel bad for Megan Fox, seeing as she's on record saying this isn't an acting movie, as she felt like all she did in these films was just run and scream. Sounds accurate to what happens during the final battle in Egypt. She doesn't even get a moment to shine like she did in the last movie. I guess if we're on the topic of other things I sort of enjoyed about this movie, Agent Simmons is back, and he's actually somewhat more tolerable. He still takes part in some of the movie's lamer jokes.
I am directly below. Enemy scrotum.
Yeah, it's cringe, but John Turturro plays the role with dedication, I'll give him that. He's a crazy person who thinks he's a badass, but he's also one of the few people who can help Sam and Michaela when they're on the run. He's more useful than Sam's roommate, that's for sure. I also liked Jetfire. He's a cranky old man who makes a similar Planet Dirt joke to the one we heard in Cybertron, which I've mentioned before is the only funny joke in Revenge of the Fallen, and I stand by it. Can we at least laugh at this movie's errors the way we could with the last film? In a few ways, yes. For one thing, these two lines are back-to-back.
Even in death there is no command but mine. My master, I failed you on Earth.
Michaela is somehow able to get a big metal box containing Wheelie through airport security. Someone at Sam's college is casually selling pot brownies on campus, and when Sam's mom eats them, she starts acting very loopy. This is not how a stoned person behaves. I have a hard time believing Michael Bay has never smoked weed before, yet this character's actions suggest that is the case. 5 Decepticons travel to the bottom of the ocean to bring Megatron back to life, killing one of their own for spare parts. That means there's still only 5 Decepticons that return to the surface, right?
Con sonar now holds 6 contacts, and they're coming up fast.
There's also how Jetfire is found in the Smithsonian, yet when he breaks out, he's in an airfield that's located in a different state. Israel apparently doesn't exist in this movie's universe because Egypt and Jordan are treated as being right next to each other. Not to mention the pyramids are within spitting distance of the ocean in this movie. At least in some shots they are. But then you got some of the ones that are a little too stupid to laugh at. When the Fallen reveals himself to the world demanding humanity hands over Sam, the government agent working with the military says President Obama is actually considering it. We're talking about a person who is real, not fictional, yet here I am saying that's out of character. There's also this big deal made about how the Matrix is the only thing that can revive Optimus, but Sam is forgetting that he has an Allspark fragment. If Megatron can be resurrected with one, Optimus can be too. Oh wait, get a load of this. The big city battle in the first movie, the one with widespread destruction and hundreds of witnesses, and keep in mind the first movie predates Man of Steel, so there were no contrivances regarding the city being evacuated beforehand. People saw the battle. Well, we're supposed to forget all about that because apparently the government covered it all up. Yeah. Sam's roommate is even introduced as a conspiracy theorist who is trying to uncover the truth.
This is a film about giant transforming alien robots, yet that's not the part of the movie that breaks my suspension of disbelief. I've got to stop talking about this part. It's making me sound like CinemaSins.
For a 2009 movie, I was surprised by how well the effects hold up. The part where Devastator, the real Devastator, seeing as this one is a combiner,
They're gonna build an army of combiners!
is sucking up sand looks a little crude, but everything else looks convincing enough. Transitions from real vehicles to CG robots are usually seamless, sometimes managing to pull it off in a single shot. All of the military hardware in this movie is real, along with the explosions. So many explosions. Michael Bay decided to indulge in this final battle. It's easily over 20 minutes of Sam and Michaela running through the sand to get to Optimus's body, the slow motion moments extending it out to the point that it starts to drag. Surprisingly, when Optimus Prime is brought back to life, his ensuing fight with Megatron in The Fallen is quite short, leading to a very abrupt ending.
It does lead to one of the most memorable lines that Optimus Prime has ever said. No, it's not freedom is the right of all sentient beings, or one shall stand, one shall fall. I'm talking about this one.
Give me your faith.
The pacing is not this movie's strong suit, nor is it the dialogue, or the characters, or the pacing, or the cinematography in the fight scenes. It's definitely not the comedy. Hopefully the third film will be better. I understand this is the one that features Leonard Nimoy.
This is bad comedy.
No, not that one. However, my next review will be talking about something very different. Something that has nowhere near the budget of a summer blockbuster like the Bayformers films. And yet it's endured for over 50 years. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well.
I'll get you next time, Autobots. Next time.